She died as the latest victim, a martyr in the war on our police. This war has to stop. It has to end right now. The police are finally sending a message to all of us who need to have their back. In Chicago, after that officer died, as her colleagues were waiting in the hospital, and the mayor of a city that has become a war zone with between 50 and 80 people shot every weekend, turned her back on a mayor who was defunding them and who did not give them her support. Here is the photograph from inside the hospital as they turned their backs on Mayor Lori Lightfoot as Officer French's colleague was fighting for his life inside the ICU. It must be so difficult right now to be a police officer. Not only do you not have the support of Democrat mayors and governors across America, you are having to fight a war against real criminals, not the myth of white supremacy or MAGA extremists, but scenes like this from Portland. The Black Lives Matter riots, the Antifa riots across the country that have cost the lives of more than 36 Americans, half of them, ironically, given BLM's name, Black Americans. These are the scenes of carnage that our police officers have to deal with without the support of their Democrat mayors and governors. It is an outrage. Let's look at who the real racists, who the real extremists are. These are what the protesters think of the men and women keeping us safe.
They're
a part of the system. They're a part of the problem. Just because they're black doesn't mean they're not a part of the problem.
You should know that. Traitor. Traitor to your people. You're like the Black Judas.
Smile for Breonna Taylor. I'm a genius.
This over here, this piece over here hit me.
And it's not just racial slurs calling black police officers racists. It's their lives as well. The statistics that this graph shows you are shocking, with an almost double increase in officer fatalities over just the last year. And this is when the Democrats wish to defund the police, when we are seeing literally a war on our law enforcement officers. One man who knows the true cost of this war, who has served this nation for decades, ending up as the 40th commissioner for the New York Police Department, here with that great man, America's mayor, is our first guest here on the Gorka Reality Check. He is the author of the incredible work, you've got to check it out, Lost Son. Welcome, Commissioner Bernard Kerik, to Newsmax.
Thanks, Sebastian.
Commissioner Kerik, I'm not a police officer. I didn't serve in any police unit here in the United States. I spent a few years in a British military reserve unit. You've served as a military police officer. You ran Rikers Island, and then you rose to the most prestigious police appointment probably in the world. Am I exaggerating things in my monologue when I'm speaking of a war on America's police?
No, you're not. And this is something that's been going on probably since the Obama administration. I think he was the one that really started this right out of the White House, pitting blacks against whites, pitting communities against their police. And it's only gotten worse as time has gone on. But as I just watched some of that video, you know, when you look at these young people that's verbally assaulting these cops, you have to wonder what's going on in our schools today, right? What's going on in our colleges? Their kids are being indoctrinated today in grammar school, in high school, in college, to hate the police, to hate the government, to hate our military. And that's what's coming out of this. And the end result is it's physical assaults against cops. It's homicides. Cops are being murdered at rates they haven't seen in years. And it's outrageous. And the biggest problem for us is we have governors, mayors, city council members that are not only doing nothing about it, but many of them are supporting it. Many of them despise the police. Many of them want the defunding of the police. When you defund the police, you take away their manpower and resources, you take away their training, and you take away everything we've given them over the last 20 or 30 years to be the best they can be. Now you want to take it away, and then you're going to sit around in a circle jerk in Washington and complain and yell and holler because shootings are going up, violent crime is going up, and murder is going up, and nobody's doing nothing about it.
Commissioner Kerik, what happens to retention of police officers? What happens to the rates of early retirement and morale with the likes of de Blasio in New York, Lightfoot in Chicago, when they become part of the BLM Antifa movement with their rhetoric? What are you hearing from your former subordinates, your friends and colleagues in the NYPD?
Well, the reality is there's no retention these days, none. Men and women in the NYPD, most hitting their 20 years, you can retire at 20, most hitting that number and getting out immediately. Where years ago, when I was on the job 20 years ago, 25 years ago, you had guys that just basically said, I'm going to work until I have to stop, until I'm 63 years old, whether I have 30 years, 35 or 40 years on the job, I'm going to work until the day I die. I love this job. Today, at 20, they're getting out. Some are vesting at 10. Some, many, as a matter of fact, 5, 6, 7 years on the job. They don't even make it to a vesting period for retirement. They get out because they want to go to another place where they're going to be supported, where the mayors are going to support them and indemnify them and give them the support they need to do their job. Because in New York City, in Chicago, in Atlanta, these are cities run by Democrats that are basically villainizing the police, victimizing the thugs, and causing these massive increases in violent crime, murder, and shootings.
What is your message? I know this is very tough. Do you have a message, Commissioner Kerik, for the police officers who are still holding the line, who haven't decided to leave or to not even vest their pensions? What would you say to them now, given the conditions politically in America?
Well, listen, what I'd say is don't forget that you're needed in these communities. Don't forget the importance of your job. Don't forget what you do for those communities, because without them, there's complete chaos. I mean, they're doing the best they can, especially after these defunding episodes. Minneapolis, they defunded, they eliminated a number of cops within the department. The crime rate doubled, and then they basically had to bring cops back and refund the department to get cops back on the job, but you lost all the experience. Don't, ignore this stuff. Ignore the politics. Go out and do your job on a daily basis the best you can. And it's going to, there's a benefit to society and the communities by them being there.
Thank you, Commissioner. It's been very hard to get you on this show. We've been trying for more than a month. You have been traveling the country, campaigning for some great candidates, and you have been on the front line along with Mayor Giuliani and a handful of other people trying to get to the bottom of what happened in the last election. So I want to use this opportunity, since we've got you on the Gorka Reality Check, to thank you not only for your service in the past in the U.S. Army, in the NYPD as Commissioner, but for what you are doing right now, and especially for highlighting to me how we can support your old boss, America's Mayor Rudy Giuliani. He is in the crosshairs of the Democrats. They want to destroy him, bankrupt him. They want to strip him of his law licenses. So please go to the website Commissioner Kerik informed me of. It is RudyGiulianiFreedomFund.com. That's RudyGiulianiFreedomFund.com. Support America's Mayor. And thank you, Commissioner, for everything you are still doing for America.
Thank you, sir.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.